welcome to the Healthy Mind Speaker Series. I'm Peter Neufeld, part of the HR team here at Maple Leaf, and it's a pleasure to have you join us today. We're going to be taking the same approach that we have in the past, so we're going to be hearing from a great speaker, and then we're going to be opening it up to Q&A. If you have any questions, there's an icon at the top, and you can just click on that, and I'll be monitoring the questions, and then we'll be answering as many as we can. As we look at today's sessions, I'm super excited. We have as a guest today Leslie Beck. And for me, Leslie is a little bit of a celebrity because when I read people in the newspaper and the Globe and Mail, I kind of follow along, and I'm always interested in terms of what they report on, the information that they cover, and how it evolves over time. And so I've been actually reading, Leslie, your column for a number of years, and it's just a pleasure to have you join us today. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So one thing I'd point out, though, either you have a very corporate-looking home, or I think you might actually be in the office. Where are you joining us today?
I am in my office downtown. I come in to see clients, both virtually and in person 2 days a week, and then the rest of the time I work from home. So it's nice. It changes up the scenery a little bit, and I get to see, the rest of my team, obviously at a distance and masked when we're in the building, but I am in my office. So it just gives a little bit of variety to the week.
Nice. I'm jealous. Well, so I'm going to hand it over to you now, and then look forward to hearing how you connect the dots.
Great.
And your title, A Menu for Mental Wellness, is certainly intriguing for us.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really pleased to be here to share with you on the topic of diet and mental well-being. There certainly is much research going on in this field now. And I think people change their diets regularly. They change them to lose weight, to lower their cholesterol, to manage their diabetes, to run a race faster, and so on. But what many people don't think to do, though, is to improve their diet in order to improve their mood. And thanks to the field of nutritional psychiatry, we are now looking at mental health differently. We are learning most definitely that food affects your brain and your mental health. So today, what I'm going to cover in the next 15 minutes, I want to talk about the role of diet in preventing and treating mental health disorders. I want to talk to you a little bit about how certain nutrients influence the brain and mental health. And then at the end, I'm going to put it all together and then give you some diet strategies that you can actually implement at home that not only are good for your mental well-being, but help keep you healthy in many other ways too. Next slide, please. Great, thank you. So nutritional psychiatry is a relatively new field. It's about 12 years old, and it focuses on building a comprehensive scientific evidence base about how our overall diet, so the foods we eat, the foods we don't eat, and how much of certain foods we eat, how all of that influences the risk of developing a mental health disorder. And it also looks at how changing our diet may help treat depression, anxiety, and other mental health disorders as well. So a nutritional psychiatrist puts diet and nutrition front and center of the treatment regime. He or she may ask a patient, so tell me about your diet, or what do you normally have for breakfast? And how we think about diet and mental health, as I mentioned, is really changing. And that is thanks to the research that's been done over the past decade or so in this field. The statement that you see on the screen, this was a conclusion published in 2015 in a review paper in the prestigious journal Lancet Psychiatry. So this was 5 years ago, and the conclusion at that time with the research is that diet is as important to psychiatry as it is to cardiology, endocrinology, and gastroenterology. So that's quite a powerful statement. Next slide. So what do we know? Studies have found a consistent and positive relationship between an unhealthy dietary pattern, one that's higher in saturated fat, sugar, refined carbohydrates, and highly processed foods, to poor mental health in adults, in kids, and in teenagers. On the flip side, extensive research has linked a healthy dietary pattern, and that's one that's high in fruits and vegetables, whole grain, fish and nuts, to a lower risk of depression in adults, kids, and teenagers as well. And it's also been linked with a lower rates of anxiety and bipolar disorder. Next slide. But what's really exciting are two randomized controlled trials. So that's the gold standard of scientific evidence. Both of them were published in 2017, and they both showed that diet can actually help treat depression. The first one was called the SMILES trial, and that stands for Supporting the Modification of Lifestyle in Lowered Emotional States. This was a 3-month study. So researchers assigned 67 people with major depression to either a diet group or a social support group. They served as the control group. And after 12 weeks, though, the participants who were coached by a registered dietitian to follow a Mediterranean-style diet had significant improvement in both depression and anxiety symptoms compared to people who were just in the social support group. But the remarkable thing here to me was most of the participants in the study were already getting treatment for depression. For example, it might be medication or psychotherapy. And even over and above that, improving one's diet improved mood. Next slide. So this was the second trial, again, a 3-month trial published in 2017. Healthy Med stands for Healthy Eating for Life with a Mediterranean-style diet. So this study randomized participants with depression either to the diet group, which was a Mediterranean diet, plus fish oil supplements, or the social support group. And again, at the end of 3 months, people in the diet group had significantly improved depression scores and mental health in general. So the results of these two studies, and more to come, are really changing the way we think about the role of diet in mental health. We are definitely learning that diet is very important. Next slide. So it's thought that diet impacts many different biological pathways in the body that underpin depression, as well as other mental health disorders. So one of them, for example, whole foods like fruits and vegetables, whole grain, fish, nuts, beans, and olive oil, all of which are plentiful in the Mediterranean diet. They contain anti-inflammatory nutrients and anti-inflammatory phytochemicals, which are naturally occurring plant compounds. And all of them help to reduce inflammation in the body. And that's important because many studies have associated depression with chronic low-grade inflammation. And it's thought that these inflammatory immune compounds actually communicate with the brain, affecting your mood, your behavior, and also your energy levels. Next. So whole foods also contain hundreds and hundreds of antioxidants. Many of these antioxidants have anti-inflammatory properties, but many of them also protect brain cells from damage from free radicals, which are harmful molecules we form every day in our body. And we get more of them from pollution, cigarette smoke, etc. So some of the nutrients in your diet that act as strong antioxidants, and these are things we should really be focusing on eating more of on a daily basis. Vitamin C is one of them, and there you'll see the very best food sources. So red and green bell peppers, cauliflower and broccoli, tomatoes, of course, oranges and grapefruit, kiwi fruit, strawberries, mango, cantaloupe, and pineapple actually is an excellent source of vitamin C as well. Vitamin E is an antioxidant, and what it does, it's especially protective of brain cell membranes, which are fatty membranes. So vitamin E protects fats in the body from being damaged by free radicals. Some of the top food sources of vitamin E: sunflower seeds, almonds and almond butter, peanuts and peanut butter, cooked spinach, wheat germ oil is a fantastic source. So, and if you're cooking oils, grapeseed oil is a good source, sunflower oil and safflower oil as well. And you also see beta carotene on that slide. So beta carotene isn't a vitamin per se, it's a phytochemical, but we do know that higher intakes are associated with health benefits. It's anti-inflammatory, and it's found in dark green vegetables like spinach, kale, collards, Swiss chard would be up there as well. And it's also found in orange vegetables and fruits like butternut squash, sweet potato, mango, apricots, papaya are some good sources as well. Next slide. Folate is a B vitamin. It does many, many things in the body, but one thing it's important for, it's needed to make serotonin. That's that feel-good brain chemical or neurotransmitter that helps regulate your mood, as well as your appetite and your sleep. So that's really important, and the top food sources are lentils, black beans, and kidney beans. Cooked spinach is great, asparagus, artichokes, avocado should be added to that list as well. beets, broccoli, and oranges. So those are all should be your go-to foods for folate in your diet. Next. Omega-3 fats have anti-inflammatory properties, and I'm talking about omega-3 fats found in oily fish like salmon and trout, but also the omega-3 fats that are found in flaxseed, chia seeds, hemp seeds. Those are the plant-based sources. So these reduce inflammation in the body, they help to maintain healthy brain cells, and they actually influence how your brain cells talk to one another. Prebiotics and fiber are really important. We need to be including these in our daily diet to help maintain a really diverse community of the bacteria and other microbes that live in our gut, which we collectively call the gut microbiome. One of the things that many people don't realize is your gut bacteria produce 70%, so most of your brain serotonin. It isn't all produced in your brain. Those gut bacteria are responsible for a lot of it. And prebiotics, these are fibrous carbohydrates that are really rich in certain foods, and they don't get absorbed in your small intestine. Instead, what they do, they make their way to your colon, where they feed and fuel the growth of all those good gut bacteria, those probiotic bacteria, so that they can exert all their health benefits. And there you'll see a list of some of the really good sources of prebiotics in your diet. Barley, oats, especially raw oats, so overnight oats in the fridge are a great way to get more prebiotics. Jerusalem artichokes, if you haven't tried them, pretty easy to find in grocery stores, and they're great added to stir fries. Asparagus, bananas, garlic and onion, and kefir. I'm not sure if you're familiar with kefir. So that's a fermented milk beverage. It's kind of like liquid yogurt. It's not only a great source of prebiotic carbohydrates, it also has probiotics as well. And then it is really important to be really focusing on your overall fiber intake and to be getting at least, I would say, 30 to 35 grams of fiber per day. A high fiber does help reduce inflammation in the body as well. All right, next slide. So what I'm going to do now is let's put it all together into a diet, because we don't eat nutrients, we don't eat foods in isolation. We eat them in the context of an overall diet. And the diet I really want to talk about building is an anti-inflammatory diet. And certainly the Mediterranean diet is the best example and the most studied example of an anti-inflammatory diet. The Mediterranean diet is really not a diet per se, it's more a pattern of eating it's been followed by people living in countries that border the Mediterranean Sea. And it truly is the gold standard diet based on the many, many health benefits associated with it, including reducing the risk of developing depression. So to eat this way, it means eating fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans and lentils, nuts and seeds every day. The main source of fat is olive oil, which is a monounsaturated fat, which is anti-inflammatory. Fish, poultry, eggs, and dairy products, in particular yogurt and cheese, are eaten several times a week, while small portions of red meat are limited to 3 times a week at most. And then sweets and sugary desserts, they're really enjoyed as occasional treats. No one food or food group is thought to be responsible for the diet's health benefits. Researchers really believe that it's the combined protective effect of this eating pattern that counts, not individual foods or food groups. Next slide. So now I'd like to share with you 7 ways you can Mediterraneanize your diet at home. And these are strategies that will help you get more anti-inflammatory nutrients, phytochemicals, plant compounds into your diet. So first thing, really focus on vegetables. Your goal should be to eat vegetables with every meal, including breakfast. So aim for at least 1 serving, which is half a cup of cooked vegetables, half a cup of raw vegetables, or 1 cup of salad greens at all meals. So some of the strategies you might do, and focus on a variety of colors as well: green, orange, purple, white. Phytochemicals vary by color in plant foods. So you might add baby spinach, red peppers, and mushrooms to an omelet. You could add baby greens or pumpkin puree to protein shakes and smoothies. Both of those are excellent sources of beta carotene. I always have baby greens in my fridge. I'll routinely throw them into a spaghetti sauce, into a chili, just to up my intakes of these leafy greens. You can add shredded carrot, zucchini to muffins, to pasta sauces, even to burgers. And certainly there's no rule that you can't have a side salad with your oatmeal at breakfast. Strategy number 2 is to rethink red meat in your diet. If you do eat red meat, and by that I mean beef, pork, lamb, goat is also considered red meat, treat it as a condiment rather than the main attraction of a meal. So what you might, instead of having a 10-ounce steak, for example, have instead 3 ounces, a smaller portion of meat with grilled, bell peppers, mushrooms, onion as kebabs, or 3 ounces of meat stir-fried with lots of vegetables. Do really try to include fish, particularly oily fish, in your diet to get those omega-3 fatty acids, and aim for twice a week. Include turkey and chicken at least twice a week as well. Next slide. And to help you reduce animal protein, particularly red meat, eat more plant-based meals. A good goal, I think, is to aim for 4 meatless meals a week. So for lunch, an example might be a pita or a tortilla stuffed with lots of vegetables and hummus or tahini. Consider adding white kidney beans instead of ground meat to a pasta sauce, like a marinara sauce. Now, when the weather starts getting cooler later in the fall and the winter, it's a great time to make a big pot of a bean or lentil soup or a vegetarian chili that you can have for quick lunches and dinners. And what I do regularly is if I'm making tacos, I'll replace the ground meat with pinto beans or black beans. And those now have become my go-to tacos. Really important to be eating more whole grains too, to get your fiber intake up, to get your more nutrients and phytochemicals, and things like barley, good examples, dehulled barley, brown rice, black rice, red rice. All of those grains there are really good ones to include in your diet, but some of them, they take a long time to cook. So when you're at home at the end of the day, many people aren't inclined to cook them. So one way you can have them on hand to add them to many meals in many different ways is to cook them in advance. Just batch cook them, whether that's on the stove or in your Instant Pot. And then you've got them in the fridge. You can make a quick salad by mixing leftover cooked grains with roasted vegetables, lentils, fresh herbs, and a vinaigrette. You might toss leftover whole wheat pasta with tuna, red kidney beans, herbs again in a vinaigrette for a quick salad. Or you'll have them in the fridge just to add them to soups and to stews, or to stuff bell peppers with for fast meals. Next. Make your snacks, make sure your snacks include fruits and nuts. Easy to do, whether that's dried fruit or fresh fruit with a small handful of almonds, walnuts, pecans. Any nut is healthy and nutritious. Almonds are very high in monounsaturated fats. Walnuts are one of the nuts that of the few that has a very high amount of the plant-based omega-3 fat called ALA, the same omega-3 that's found in chia seeds and flax seeds. If you're having yogurt and berries, throw in some toasted nuts. And for dessert, if you really want to satisfy your sweet tooth after a meal, reach for fruit for dessert. Next, really consider the fats you're using in your diet, and make extra virgin olive oil the principal fat you cook with. And I would swap olive oil for butter in baking as well. You will need less of it. So for example, if your recipe calls for, a quarter cup of melted butter in muffins, let's say, you'll need instead only 3 tablespoons of olive oil. And many people think, well, I can't cook with extra virgin olive oil but extra virgin olive oil has a smoke point of 410 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the temperature at which an oil starts to break down and burn. So it certainly is suitable for sauteing vegetables and baking. To get more monounsaturated fats on toast, consider using mashed avocado, peanut butter, or almond butter. And then again, to get more omega-3s, add flaxseed or chia seeds to your diet. 1 tablespoon provides a full day's worth of alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA, for men and women. And again, walnuts, as I mentioned, are a great source of these omega-3 fats. Next slide. Okay, and finally, really up your game by using herbs and spices. I don't know if you're doing this right now, but flavor your grain dishes, salads, soups, salad dressings with either fresh or dried herbs and spices instead of salt. Not only will you cut down on sodium, but you're also adding polyphenols to your meals. And polyphenols are potent antioxidants with anti-inflammatory properties. So these are only a few ways to add herbs and spices to your diet. These are some of the things I do. Now I routinely add fresh mint leaves and parsley to my green leafy salads. Adds great flavor. I'll toss fresh chopped dill into coleslaws. I use it when I bake or roast fish. You might put ground cinnamon and oatmeal, or some people like to mix ground cinnamon with almond butter and then add that to shakes and smoothies. Fresh ginger has got lots of anti-inflammatory compounds. You can add it to a smoothie or a protein shake, or use it in stir fries. There are many, many different ways to add herbs and spices to your diet. Next slide, I think that's where I'm going to end. So I just want to thank you very much for listening in today. It's a pleasure to be here. And I think it's question time.
Yeah, it's excellent. Thanks so much, Leslie. This was, there's so much information here, and I'm getting people asking questions saying, can I have a copy of this? So folks, we will get to questions, as many as we can, but we'll also make this presentation available so you're able to kind of record what you weren't able to take up here. So one of the questions that we have here is around, and there are a number of them, and it's looking at, what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting for anti-inflammatory benefits and brain fog?
So, okay, that's a good question. So intermittent fasting, there are many different forms of intermittent fasting. The one that's really popular today is time-restricted eating. So really eating your meals in an 8-hour window during the day and then fasting for 16 hours, sometimes 14 hours. And certainly intermittent, the type of time-restricted eating that has been studied. And there's a few studies out there now. There's not a lot of research, but we are learning it has metabolic health benefits. And what I mean by that, it's been shown to help reduce blood triglycerides, blood fats, and cholesterol in overweight people. It has been shown to reduce inflammation. Keep in mind, these are very small studies. But the type of time-restricted eating that we're looking at is early time-restricted eating. So starting, you have your breakfast at 7, finish your meals by 3 or 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. That's what we're looking at. Not the way that many people have done it. Certainly when people were going into work every day, they'd skip breakfast and start eating at noon and then finish their last meal would be done by 8 p.m. It's thought that eating according to our circadian rhythm, so our body's biological internal clock, is important. And our bodies are adapted to eat during the day and sleep at night. And we certainly have learned that our bodies are more efficient at metabolizing or processing carbohydrates and fat early in the day versus late in the day. So I think if you want to do it, to perhaps get some of these health benefits, ideally I would do it early and stop eating in the night if you can. And if you're working from home, you may be able to do that now. But I think at the very least, one thing, if you can't, really important, don't snack after dinner.
Thank you. Here's an interesting one. Some experts say paleo is the best anti-inflammatory diet. What are your thoughts?
I haven't looked at I haven't looked at any studies, and they may exist to show that people who have followed a paleo diet have lower levels of inflammatory compounds. That's possible, but I would say to you, it certainly isn't a Mediterranean style diet in the fact that it's higher in red meat and animal protein. It's certainly, and the other thing that's missing in it that's really important from an anti-inflammatory standpoint is whole grains, right? So I still, every time if I had, I would go more Mediterranean, get the whole grains in there and less red meat.
So within the diet, here's a question about the inclusion of fish. With fish as the central theme, is there a concern about the safety of consuming larger amounts of oily fish? I've read a lot about the concerns with farm fish. Should we rather just replace it with fish oil?
Okay, good questions. So first of all, the recommendation is get oily fish, a couple of times a week, more if you like. So the oily fish we're talking about, first of all, salmon, trout, sardines, etc. All of those that are rich in omega-3s are, number one, low in mercury. It's the large predatory fish, like tuna, etc., that are higher in mercury. Number two, when you're eating fish, you're definitely getting those omega-3s, but you're also getting other things as well. For example, salmon is an exceptional source of vitamin D, one of the very few foods that's high in vitamin D naturally, and vitamin D has anti-inflammatory properties at all. It's also a great source of selenium, which is an antioxidant mineral in our diet. So you get other things along with fish. But if you don't like fish or you don't eat fish, you certainly can replace that with a fish oil supplement. With respect to farm fish, I know that there was a study that came out back in, I think it was 2004, that really made people question farm fish, and it was a little, I don't even want to go there, but anyway, I will say this, I will say that aquaculture in Canada, the aquaculture operations, many of them do a really, really good job in terms of safe practices, what they feed the fish, how they raise the fish, the environment around them. And if you're really concerned about that, look for statements when you buy fish, whether it's from the fish store or the grocery store, that it's eco-certified.
Your recommendations have included, we say, fish and limited portions of poultry. There's a question here about, can I follow the Mediterranean diet as a vegetarian? And how would I replace the nutrients that I would have gotten if I had chosen those other foods?
Okay. Well, I would say to you that you certainly, as a vegetarian, and I don't know if you're talking as a vegan, so absolutely no animal foods or not, but either way, you certainly can follow a Mediterranean style diet. It would certainly be a vegan 100% plant-based diet is an anti-inflammatory diet for sure. So how would you would just make sure that you're getting protein from other sources if you're not, and that's easy to do with beans and lentils and nuts, and maybe you're going to have some edamame and tofu in there. With respect to the omega-3 fats, you can include chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts to get that one. If you want the one type of omega-3 fat, there's two of them in fish, DHA and EPA for short. DHA is the omega-3 fat that actually gets into your brain cells. Fish get it from eating algae. And you can buy algae-based DHA supplements, which many vegans do, to get that particular omega-3 fat. You don't need, I wouldn't say turkey, fish, and poultry turkey, chicken, and fish, I should say, aren't necessary components of an anti-inflammatory diet. I think really when we study the Mediterranean diet pattern, they're in there more often, and I think the point is that red meat is there in very low amounts.
Thank you. So folks, I don't think we've ever had a session where we've had so many questions. So I guess we're a food company and people are very interested in this topic, and I think it's just amazing. We'll end with one quick one, and then we'll close out. The question is around, are dried herbs as effective as fresh ones?
Yeah, they are. So you can use dried or fresh for sure, but just make sure dried herbs and spices usually last 3, maybe 4 years in your cupboard, depending if it's not too hot and they're not exposed to light. So just make sure that you give them sort of a smell, and if they're still potent, if you can really smell, their whatever it is, the oregano, the basil, but yeah, because sometimes you've got something in the back of the cupboard that you've had for years that you don't use very often. You may have to pitch that to get something new, but absolutely you can use dried.
Leslie, thank you so much. This has just been a wealth of information. And folks, I'd say we're always asking you, saying, what are the topics that you want to hear more about? You've definitely said, and a very clear message, that this is when you'd like to learn more. So we'll see if we can continue this conversation either with Leslie or somebody else. Leslie, this, as I say, this is tremendous. Thank you so much for your generous use of your time. And everyone, I wish you a great day, and hope you are able to put some of these great things into practice. One of the things that we've learned from our past presentations is starting small and doing things step by step in the direction that you want to go can prove to be an effective strategy. So hopefully we all start to implement the advice that we got today. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.